Hello, welcome to Sherlock Holmes Crimes and Punishments After the Bell. I've cracked all 6 cases that Sherlock Holmes has had to offer, and I'm now in a position to give it its After the Bell official grading. Sherlock Holmes did get off to a bit of a rocky start in my Before the Bell video, but it does manage to steady the ship and produce a decent detective game. I criticised the game for looking a little bit dull, and that's still the case. The presentation of Crimes and Punishments is very mediocre. Obviously the graphics haven't changed since I first done the video, nor of the animations, but I did manage to make the game a little bit easier and a bit nicer to play by using the first person mode. The third person mode, you can obviously see Sherlock a lot more and see stiff animations. It's a bit difficult to see where you're pointing, but being able to switch to first person is a good addition, and it's something that I definitely recommend if you're going to play through this game. I did also mention that the gameplay was a bit dull, but did allude to at the end of the video that once I got in the flow of things, I expected it to be a bit more enjoyable, and that's exactly what happened. Once you play through it a little bit more and get used to what you're doing, Crimes and Punishments is a game that I did enjoy. It's a niche of a game, and it's not going to appeal to everyone, but if you're into detective work, you've got a good title here to go through. The game, as I said, doesn't hold your hand, and it gives you multiple suspects, doesn't give you the one suspect red-handed, and it's a brilliant idea. You use a mechanic in the game which is called a deduction system, where what you'll do is you'll look at 2 pieces of evidence and then formulate your own opinion on what that means. Now obviously you're not free-forming the opinion. What it'll do is it'll usually give you 2 sides of each story, and from there you're free to choose which side of that story you're going to believe, or how you're going to interpret that evidence. As the evidence and the clues pile up and you make more and more deductions, it will lead to a number of suspects depending on how you have soaked up and looked at the information on an individual basis. And I love this. All games in this genre should have something like this in place, where it requires you to use your head, think about people's motives, and rather than just looking at every single clue, sometimes it's about picking out the key pieces of evidence to factual parts. And I checked my progress after I finished the game, or my performance after the game, and I actually got 3 of the 6 cases wrong. So Mr. Holmes has actually damned 3 people to the rope who he shouldn't have, thanks to a few of my blunders. As I said, there are 6 cases, and I'd say 4 out of the 6 are very good. The other 2 are a bit cack, really. I'm not going to go into any spoilers about what they are, but Crimes and Punishments works best when you're only visiting 2 or 3 locations max, and the 2 that I didn't like asked you to go trekking off halfway across Surrey. You end up in St Albans at one point. It just gets a bit confusing remembering what you found where, and it didn't really work for me. It makes it especially difficult if you stop and have a break, or if the night ends and you go to sleep and come back to it the next day. It's tricky to figure out and pick up where you left off. The other 4, as I mentioned, though, are great. They have some interesting cases, and they take twists and turns, and they keep you guessing up until you pretty much get the last piece of evidence sorted. Now, there is a moral choice system, so you can deal out the punishment in Sherlock Holmes. It doesn't seem to affect the bigger picture of the game. It's more of giving you a ranking on whether you're sort of a lenient Sherlock Holmes or a more brutal Sherlock Holmes. But it gives you that bit of freedom, and I like a bit more freedom. Any sort of little bit of freedom you can get in a game I like. And, you know, it does give you the dilemma sometimes of, if you're not 100% sure, you know, whether to punish these people with the rope, death, or go a bit lighter. So it makes you question your detective ability. And the first case for me, I basically puffed it and went for the lenient punishment because I was totally not confident in that I'd had it right. It caught me off guard, actually having to have a choice of who to charge, and had me second guessing my final decision. And yeah, as I said, I got 3 of them wrong, and one of them was that first one. So lucky that guy didn't get the full brunt of what you could dish out the punishment. Unfortunately, Sherlock himself isn't as charismatic as the modern Sherlock that I know, and Watson, well, I don't even know what Watson's doing there half the time, honestly. He gets in the way most of the time. You can switch to him on a couple of occasions, but it seems a bit forced, in my opinion. There isn't much chemistry between the 2 either, and it just feels a little bit flat, which is disappointing because that's one of the more entertaining parts of the Sherlock Holmes that I'm familiar with, is him and Dr. Watson's relationship. To make this into a great game, they ought to have included some some proper interrogation mechanic. That for me is one of the most interesting parts of games of this genre, is talking to witnesses and suspects and gauging how truthful they're being, if they are being dishonest, tying them up with the evidence that you've picked up. L.A. Noire did this brilliantly, and it just isn't quite here for Crimes and Punishments. It's essentially trial and error with no penalty for making a mistake. But this isn't a game breaker. Having the multiple suspects and using the deduction system to come to your own conclusions is an absolute winner. Aesthetically, yes, it could improve a lot. However, it doesn't hold Sherlock Holmes' Crimes and Punishments back. Therefore, its official after the bell grading is silver. Thanks very much for your time, and ta-da.